What's the difference between the flat picking of Billy Strings versus Molly Tuttle?
Hey Molly, hit me with a lick.
A commenter from a couple months ago pitted these two super popular bluegrass guitarists against each other, and they asked me to weigh in. But this isn't just your average YouTube guitarist reacts video. No. This is so much better than that. First of all, if you go to my website, you'll see that I have over 100 Billy Strings and Molly Tuttle transcriptions available for download, so I've studied their playing. On this channel, you can also find videos of me playing along with Molly and Billy, so I can keep up, I can hold my own. I actually learned every single break from Molly Tuttle's album City of Gold and performed them in one sitting. You can watch that video here. This is a long break. So can you see my confidence waning? Molly, if you're watching this. But besides that, I've met these players. I know these players, like in person. We're acquaintances. That doesn't sound very impressive. Contemporaries? Maybe? I don't know. Something like that. Look, I'll show you with footage. Here's me performing on stage with Billy Strings. Wow, impressive. The last video I made about Molly Tuttle, she laughed at in a DM to me. Here's backstage footage from a show with Billy and a Molly show. I guess my point is I might have slightly more perspective on the Billy versus Molly conversation rather than your average dude on Reddit who's saying, yeah, but Billy shreds harder or whatever. So let's lay down some ground rules. This ain't a competition. This is more about what makes them unique players. There's no winning in music, so don't think this is a competition. No angry commenters now. Also, need I say it, but this is about guitar playing because this is a guitar channel. They're both great singers, great songwriters. They both have great bands. They put on excellent shows, but we're not really gonna get into the nitty-gritty of all that because we're gonna be too busy talking about guitar chops. So first, here's a general overview of both of these incredible players. I'd assume that Billy Strings learned a lot of his bluegrass language through the folk process, as in listening to other people play, having other people teach him licks, and then copying aspects of his favorite players. I guess what I'm saying is not in an academic way. And notably, he would have learned a lot of that from his stepfather, Terry Barber. A lot of his early playing is very idiomatic, and sometimes even just famous licks back to back. Now, to be totally honest, this early Billy Strings sound isn't super innovative or even super interesting to me necessarily. Sorry, Billy. But after Billy's got his own band, coming into the late 2010s, then we start hearing some really interesting sounds, and that's what I want to talk about. Billy's records Turmoil and Tinfoil and Home, the latter of which won the Grammy for Bluegrass Album of the Year, both have bluegrass tracks on them, sure, but I think there's a real fusion aspect creeping in. For instance, the harmonic palette of the title track, Turmoil and Tinfoil, is very fresh. The classic rock feel of doing things right almost feels like something late Newgrass Revival would have done. I keep doing things right. On his record Home, we can hear a big Whiskey Before Breakfast quote in the running riff, and the distorted acoustic guitar sound that we heard in Meet Me at the Creek is really shining in the arrangement for Away from the Mire. Not to mention some other funky things like the noise section and Highway Hypnosis and the spoken word piece Spinning. When we look at all of that and everything that Billy Strings has done since, because there's been several other albums, I think we can see a traditional streak that's a mile wide, but also this real tendency to be unpredictable and exploratory. These stock licks from his childhood are being combined with licks and language from other genres, and that means that the general public is flocking to it. Essentially, Billy is a bluegrass guitarist that's not just making music for bluegrass fans, and his lack of fear for the avant-garde has turned off some bluegrass traditionalists, maybe. And maybe that points at Billy's greatest strength, which is that he's well-versed in bluegrass and loves it, but he lacks the strict adherence to bluegrass convention that most of us struggle to break free from in the bluegrass world. Molly Tuttle was very fortunate to have her father, Jack Tuttle, to start her on her bluegrass journey, Jack Tuttle being a well-known multi-instrumentalist and teacher. Molly's playing by 17 years old was already incredibly sophisticated. Rather than Billy's raw, lick-based early playing, Molly Tuttle is already starting to sound like a contest flat picker. This led to Molly receiving a scholarship to attend the Berklee College of Music in Boston. After that, I feel like it took a little bit of time for Molly Tuttle's career to really find solid footing. She went through a couple of bands like the Goodbye Girls and First Ladies of Bluegrass. She moved from Boston to Nashville. Then she put out a couple of solo releases like Rise and When You're Ready. But like I said, I think this was a tough spot for Molly. Despite Rise and When You're Ready being great records, objectively good records, in retrospect, Rise is maybe a little unfocused, and When You're Ready just doesn't have enough flat picking in it. There's some songs that sound like almost like indie pop or something, indie Americana.
I can see it now. The light came in when the power went out. I can feel it, I can feel it now. The love came in when the power went out.
Molly Tuttle and Golden Highway would be Molly's next project, and Golden Highway's albums, City of Gold and Crooked Tree, would both win Grammys for Bluegrass Album of the Year. I think this is when we can really see Molly Tuttle come into her own as a guitarist and a band leader. Everything is just, Gucci from here on out. Now, like I said, I recently learned and performed every single break off of City of Gold. You can get the tab book on my website. And I can tell you that Molly's breaks are much more syncopated than Billy's, but at the same time, they're very fluid and carefully composed. She has these clear themes and motifs that sometimes run through her solos, and that leads to them feeling very, sophisticated, but still, kind of poppy, very listenable, despite them being technically challenging, which I think points towards Molly's strengths and developments as an artist, too. Molly is making bluegrass music for fans of bluegrass, but by the nature of it having this pop listenability infused with a Southwest Americana aesthetic, it appeals to a larger fan base. All right, now time for a little bit of nerd shit. Molly Tuttle and Billy Strings have very different right hands, and lucky for us, they're kind of demonstrating the two most popular right hand techniques for bluegrass musicians. Billy Strings favors playing with an open right hand. Notice that his ring finger and his pinky are touching the pickguard. They aren't planted on the pickguard. They're not applying pressure the way a banjo player might do. They're just a reference point. This freedom of movement along the pickguard while touching means that Billy doesn't have any useless tension happening. He's not applying pressure where it's not useful. Also, just by the way, real quick, applying pressure to the top of the guitar can be a source of strain, and some folks who make this mistake then attempt to play these demanding bluegrass pieces and they experience pain. Pain here in the inside of their hand or here along their forearm. Don't do that. Bad idea. You want to play guitar for the rest of your life, right? Don't injure yourself. Now, in terms of tonal production, Billy has a very raw, percussive sound to his picking, and that makes me think of first and second generation flat pickers. Now, he doesn't always play the stuff that those players would have played, but his tonal production is often in the same territory. Now, Molly Tuttle, on the other hand, or rather on the same hand, specifically the right hand, the picking hand, prefers a closed fist, and she uses the heel of her hand to feel the bridge pins on the top of the guitar. By the way, this is just as popular, if not more popular in the bluegrass world, as the open hand that Billy Strings uses. The difference between the two is really if you prefer the pickguard as a point of reference or if you prefer the bridge pins as your point of reference. Now, if you want to copy this technique, here's a couple things that you should look out for. Notably, you don't want to collapse your wrist. In other words, you don't want your thumb and forearm going in different directions. You want your thumb directly in line with your forearm. You know why you don't want to do that? Because it'll give you carpal tunnel syndrome after enough time. Also, just another hint, similar as last time, do not apply pressure to the bridge pins. The guitar is not a gas pedal. It's just like I was saying with Billy's fingers on the pickguard. You don't push. You also don't push on the bridge pins with the heel of your hand. Doesn't make any sense. Now, in terms of tonal production, Molly has a very precise, clear attack to her notes. It's less raw and it's more refined. I think of this as a post-Tony Rice kind of tone. Tony Rice probably being the player that more than anyone made that cool to be all smooth sounding. So what's interesting about that is for the last like half century, the Tony Rice like smooth flat picking sound was like the ideal that everyone was craving, everyone was like fighting to do. But recently we've had a resurgence of this more first generation picking sound, and I think that's because of Billy Strings. So if we restrict ourselves down to videos on singular guitar breaks that Billy and Molly have played, the two most popular breakdowns I've done for both of them are Billy's Our Vinyl performance of Dust in a Baggie, and Molly's break from this official live performance of Dooley's Farm. And these two breaks actually do an okay job of showing what I'm talking about, despite the two tunes being entirely different. I guess not entirely different, because they have similar subject matter, let's say. Let's listen to Billy's break first. All right, come on, look at that. That's basically a speed exercise. The most famous lick in bluegrass coming up. Now we get some more interesting language, right? Because Billy does both. He does super traditional, and then he does odd things, unexpected things. Now we're going to do a scale pattern, and some of the note choice is a little funky. It's not things everyone would pick. Right? That's kind of interesting. A lot of times that C note doesn't get played unless we're playing flat 5, or if we're playing like fiddle tunes, super diatonic sounding melodies, but he slipped it into kind of a different context. That happening in like an aggressive sounding bluegrass break, interesting. It's not that it's unheard of, it's just interesting. Okay, some of that was also very stock language, and some of that was also very interesting language. So, for instance, this. You know Billy loves that. Well, Billy got that from Doc. We'll see that again later in the video. Right, and then we got the drone. Super traditional bluegrass language. I don't know where Billy got that, but he does play it all the time. But anyway, now we get a real Billy moment. He goes... Let's do him play it. That's interesting. Most flat pickers won't play that line. It's something like that. It's something like that. Anyway, right, we see super traditional stuff. And then, you know, for like 4 measures in this tune, suddenly it's real strange. It's real avant-garde. That's Billy. Let's listen to this Molly break now. I find this very engaging because the song does have an interesting groove, but this isn't really a language that bluegrass musicians would play. It's made up bluegrass stuff. It's just not how we would normally assemble this stuff, though. It's interesting. Yeah. I should be in drop D. But even her pickup over this D chord, There was lots of things happening in that. That's strange. I mean, she's playing a G note over that D chord. I think we're in the key of D. She's playing the 4 over the 1 chord, which is normally a little bit of a no-no. And then she's also playing the 7th here, kind of implying that it's a D7 chord going to G, which, okay, I guess makes sense. But then she keeps playing the F natural over a D major chord, I believe, with a F sharp. Like it's an interesting sound to begin with. This double stop. This is another interesting one. She's playing over a D chord. And this is once again, the 7th and the flat 3 of that D chord. What happens at the end? At the very end, she plays 2 measures of bluegrass stuff. It's almost like the quantities of more straight ahead bluegrass language to wonky stuff is like inverted exactly, right? Billy was playing a lot of classic language, except for, that kind of rock and roll kind of repeatery stuff that he did for like 4 bars there. Like your average bluegrass musician will come into a song like this, they want to play like all of these 8th notes. Forgot I was in drop D now. Man, I can't win either way. Anyway, you see what I mean? The bluegrass musician, normally wants to play all these notes. Molly resists that. Gives us this really cool, smooth, interesting break. There's only 2 measures in there where she plays all the fast stuff. All right, we've been talking a lot about what makes these flat pickers different, but let's talk a little bit about what makes them the same. They both promoted the horribly bizarre Fender Acoustasonic, which I've heard referred to as the worst of both worlds. Hate acoustic guitars? Hate electric guitars? Do you hate yourself? Buy a Fender Acoustasonic. I know you're watching, Billy. I see you, Molly. I know you thought I'd forget about the Acoustasonic, but I didn't.
I see everything.
Just kidding, buy whatever you want. But hey, if you're spending that much on a Acoustic guitar, why don't you buy an acoustic guitar? For instance, how about this lovely Bourgeois Touchstone Signature? The good folks down at Bourgeois sent me this guitar to play, and I held it hostage for probably over half a year, basically until they just agreed that it was mine. And look, let me tell you something. If you're getting serious about bluegrass guitar and you're looking to spend a few $1,000s on, something that sounds and plays like $1 million, consider this. I highly recommend the Touchstone series that Bourgeois has kicking around right now. They're excellent guitars. Otherwise, I wouldn't be playing this in every single video. Do you think Bourgeois has paid me to play this in like all of my recent videos? No, they have not. And yet here I am, playing it over and over again. For real though, I'm incredibly happy with my guitar. Let's go back to Billy and Molly, but don't forget to say hi to Bourgeois sometime. All right, let's watch the gang try to make this Acoustasonic look good. Okay, so Billy's playing this in a very traditional way. Like I said, Billy has the capacity to be a really traditional player, and I would even wager that that's his default sound. So his take on the melody, something like that, whatever, something, is a very traditional take, all this. That's how you play that melody. We're seeing Billy show his traditional chops. And I would bet you $100 that when it comes to Molly's break, she's not gonna play that melody in such a clear traditional way. So all this is all very traditional. It's all like a straight ahead take on that tune. Billy's not really bending any rules. There's even some Doc Watson licks in there. Whatever the lick was, but I heard that. I'm gonna go blow my nose. Maybe we'll get some nose blowing ASMR from the sick guy. Hey, before I blow my nose, let me just say a big thank you to the members. Consider hitting subscribe, then hitting that join button. You can become a member too. Okay, here comes Molly's break. Let's see what Molly does. $100 now. pay up. You know my email. Molly didn't play that melody in that strict traditional way. I don't know, something like that. I'm not going to transcribe it right now, but you can see that's not as straight as that. Right, that's how that melody goes. That's the traditional way to play it. She's being creative. She's got all these interesting things, and it's still beautiful. It's motivic, like it means something. But she should have been playing that, right? If she was playing that straight melody, and she didn't choose to play that. All of that. That's not how people normally play that turnaround. That's not how people normally play that melody. Molly's out there like stretching, finding new things. It's very her. Let's listen to how she plays the B part of Beaumont Rag. That's crazy. I think she went up to that high C. I don't remember what the lick was. But once again, it's interesting. And after that pause and the lick, Molly's not going back into cross-picking like people normally do in Beaumont Rag. You can see that in Billy's playing right there. I mean, he played that opening phrase different, sure. You know, whatever the lick was. And then, you know, but then what's he go back to? Molly had like 2 measures where she played like the agreed upon traditional melody. Billy can't resist, you know, 2 or 3 measures in his break, like going back to that trad kind of sound. It's what he likes. All right, so there's a classic Billyism, all of the weird cross-picking. You know, all of that, like, strange combinations of notes. He's not really thinking about what chords he's creating. He's just creating, like, a little landscape. Very cool. I hope you can see what I'm talking about. Billy has the capacity to get weird. We saw him get weird with that cross-picking. Like, he can be aggressive or abrasive or something, you know. He throws some shoulders out now and then, but he loves the traditional sound, and he plays a lot of that traditional sound. Molly Tuttle, on the other hand, is constantly playing this very smooth, winding, interesting sound, and she's inventing kind of a lot of new language. She doesn't have to play it straight, and a lot of times she doesn't. All right, I think I made my point. You can see what I'm talking about. You know, Billy's got the attitude, Molly's got the finesse, and they play to their strengths all the time. And just to reiterate, this isn't a better or worse situation. They're both incredible. If I was drafting fantasy football bluegrass bands, I'd pick Millie? I'd pick Molly or Billy for very different lineups. I probably wouldn't put Molly into a super traditional bluegrass band, and I think that would box her in too much. And I probably wouldn't put Billy in a super academic Berkeley grass type band where everything is super overarranged, because once again, I like when Billy gets a little aggressive, you know? He needs room to throw his shoulders out. Don't box him in. All right, folks. Y'all have a good one. Go to Lessons with Marcel if you want to sign up for private lessons from some of our amazing teachers, or you can go to the tab store. You can get over 100 different Billy strings and Molly Tuttle tabs, different solos. Y'all have a good one, and I'll see you later.